I don't think anybody that works here cares what I want, but I think I care what they want. And I've learned to focus that coaching and guidance around their goals instead of mine.
Got questions, we bring the facts. From proven pros who walk the tracks. Business life, no smoke, just flames. Ask the experts, David Williams brings the game.
All right, welcome everybody. It is November 7th. It is 10:30 a.m. on the Eastern Central Time. And it is another episode of Ask the Experts, brought to you live in the Insurance Syndicate Group. And we have an incredible guest with us today that you're in for a real treat. He is a wealth of knowledge, a good friend of ours. Jeremy is the founder of a flourishing $5 million agency built from the ground up from scratch. His leadership, his vision, and unwavering commitment to growth have driven consistent year-over-year success, even in challenging environments. Jeremy has actually earned numerous prestigious national awards from Pinnacle Elite, Inner Circle Elite, Circle of Champions for 3 years, National Conference. He was a Ray Lynch Award winner, and those of you in the Allstate world know that that is not easy to do, and that's just a testament to his commitment to excellence when it comes out to his philanthropy and community service. Honor Ring recipient, and he attributes a lot of his success to building strategic relationships, coaching and process development, sales expertise, team support, results-oriented leadership, team-centered growth, all of which we're going to dive into on today's call. Jeremy, welcome to the call. Thank you so much for joining us today, my friend. How are you today?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Welcome.
Well, I'd like to dive kind of right into it. You know, I think always a good place to start because I think it always starts with leadership. And I always like to frame leadership is you got to be a good leader of your ship, right? And if you can do a good job leading your ship and building the right partnerships, building the right mentorships, building the right relationships with your customer, you can take yourself all the way to big championships. So I would love to hear about your results-oriented leadership and share with the audience maybe how they can be better leaders in their business and their agency and what exactly that looks like.
So for me, I make it a point to surround myself with people who are smarter than me, that have figured things out that I haven't figured out. And I try to learn as much as I can from folks who are doing amazing things. And, there's a lot of stuff that I've taken from others, and I may not even remember who to give credit for with it. But as far as coaching and leading the team, for me, having started the agency from scratch early on, I was the salesperson, I was the service person, I was the marketing director, I was wearing all those hats. So I've been there and done every piece of it. And while I don't do those things anymore, I know what it's like to be there. So I can empathize with what, each person's dealing with on a daily basis because I've handled it all at a high level. But, when it comes into, coaching and leading the team and driving results, like most things, learned the hard way. In the past, I was probably a little bit of the guy who would stand on the table and I'm saying this figuratively, crack the whip and yell, "I need more sales." And I don't think anybody that works here cares what I want, but I think I care what they want. And I've learned to focus that coaching and guidance around their goals instead of mine, so that, on a monthly basis, I work with each team member to say, all right, what is it you want to accomplish? What do you want to earn this month? My job is to know the numbers and how everything works inside of that. And then let's back into those goals. So, when I know that somebody wants to make $6,000 in commission this month in order to, pay off a loan or put a down payment on a car or whatever that looks like, then when there's a Tuesday, and we know that person needs 16 quotes that day in order to meet the sales goal that they set for themselves, and we're at 2:00 in the afternoon and they got 2 quotes on and made 14 calls. Well, then instead of me saying, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you calling anybody? That conversation changes into, hey, you told me that you wanted to accomplish this. You want to earn $6,000 in commission. We know you need to do this each and every day this month, but here we are halfway through the day, and this is all that's been done so far. So what's holding you back? What's in your way? What can I help you with? And that's a very different conversation from, what in the world are you doing over there? You only made 14 calls and you got 2 quotes. So I think taking an approach to it and tailoring that conversation around what's important to them instead of what's important to me makes all the difference in the world.
No, I love that. And I can attest that is very effective, because that's exactly how we operate. Like, we'll do vision boards with our team, figuring out, hey, what are their goals? And I find, you're more apt to get your goals accomplished if you help enough other people hit their goals. And then as a byproduct, you're just going to go where you need to go. Because at the end of the day, they don't care about making you more money. They don't care about a sale for you. But what they do care about, connect the money to what they care about, and everybody wins. I'm a big believer in. So they do care about getting their family maybe in a nicer home, or a safer community, or a nicer car, or a safer car to drive, or maybe sitting in your seat one day, so they could be reaping the benefits of entrepreneurship if that's a path they desire to go. Like, once you connect everybody's purpose and vision to where they want to go, I think that's true teamwork, and that's an exact example of true leadership. So,
and to that point, how much more rewarding is it when you can help that person meet their goal versus just coercing them to help you meet yours?
At our agency, like, how many people that all of a sudden started driving nicer cars, or buying their first homes, and building families. And it's like one of the most rewarding things that you could do, especially when you got some of them coming from places that, maybe they don't have direction. And then you're finally that compass as a leader to help them find the direction in their life.
For sure.
So I think a lot of people struggle with that, though. And that's why I want to stay on that topic for a little bit. Maybe deep dive into, what does some of those conversations look like in your agency when you're leading your people? Because I do think that's a massive shift. And where a lot of people miss the boat is having that connection and having that sort of servant leadership. What do some of those interactions look like in your agency when you're both coaching from a team perspective, and then dialing that down to the individual, one-on-one, how you connect as a leader?
So, from a team perspective, we're all doing the same thing. So we spend time daily, and then a little more dedicated time once a week, strictly role playing. And we've got a clearly defined sales process that we use and is expected within the agency. So, when we're working together as a team, we're practicing role playing that, have fun with it. Like, and we don't want to make that role playing like this monotonous, annoying type of scenario where everybody's just put a ton of pressure on themselves in front of all their peers. So we make sure to have fun with that, and encourage everybody to give each other feedback. And when that feedback comes from a peer versus a leader, I think it has more meaning behind it. And when they can start coaching, team members can start coaching each other. That's when things really start clicking. So from a team perspective, it's about building consistency and building a team vibe where everybody's helping each other, and we don't have that negative competition element ever involved in anything. But from an individual basis, then just like we touched on before, it's all about what's important to that person. And for me, I don't always remember that. Yep. So there's times where you see something going on and you just get frustrated and you want to address it. And I kind of keep myself in check before I start any of those conversations and say, all right, are we going into this thinking about me or thinking about them? And when you can tie whatever feedback you're going to give to what is important to that person, then you're working together with them to help them instead of just holding their feet to the fire. And it's just a completely different conversation. Now, there's times where that conversation has to get a little tougher when you've given that coaching and feedback and things aren't changing. Then we may need to turn up that accountability a little bit and sometimes those conversations are a little tougher, but if you do a really good job of connecting with them on the front end and building that relationship around what's important to them, and they see that commitment from you, then it's far less likely that you have to have those tough conversations. And then when somebody reaches that point where it's not working out, lots of times they'll be the ones that say that instead of putting you in the position to have to tell them that it's not working.
That's how you know good leadership too. And one thing I notice about you and other good leaders that are out there too is you really you have to protect that position of leadership. And what do I mean by that? Is just like the analogy, lead your ship. What wouldn't you see on a ship? You wouldn't see the captain get off and start doing the dishes. You wouldn't see a captain get off and start manning to the buoy on the side of the boat, because what's going to happen eventually, it might go on autopilot for a little while, but you're going to hit an iceberg or you're going to crash the boat. And I think there's too many people out there where they struggle with leadership is they take themselves out of that place of leadership, either because they haven't built the right shipmates that are around them, that are supporting them, that allows them to remain in that position, or they're maybe just uncomfortable with it because leadership is new to them. So what do is they exist in a lane of the comfort zone. And that might look like doing customer service work. That might look like being their sales rep, which sometimes you have to do that for a while, but eventually you got to go into it and be a leader. What do you have to say to those out there that are maybe struggling getting into that like true place, the captain of their ship, leading there? If they're outside of their comfort zone right now, how they get comfortable with it. And if they're just wearing too many darn hats right now, how they can take a few of them off and just remain steady at the helm.
So first and foremost, I think we've all been there. And, and there's value in, knowing what it takes to be on the front line. There's value in that, but to truly grow and to scale, you can't be in the weeds. And to just like you just explained perfectly with the ship analogy. And at some point it takes a leap of faith. And I remember very clearly when, it was probably 10, 11 years ago, I had to make the decision that I had to remove myself from selling, which was very difficult because the whole reason I got into this business was because, I figured out accidentally 20 years ago that I was surprisingly pretty good at selling. Spent a lot of years in the cell phone business and did very well there. And that transitioned pretty well into this business. And I enjoyed that part of it. I love connecting with people and helping them and influencing them to make a decision that puts them in a better place and all of those things. And it was really difficult to pull back from that and trust somebody else to do it. That's the biggest part of it is, when you do something well, that it's going to be very difficult to find somebody else that does it as well as you do. And somebody told me a long time ago that when you're in that position and you need to start pulling back so that you can lead, anything that somebody else can do 70% as good as you can, you need to let them do that. And that was a message that resonated and stuck with me. At least 10 years ago that was shared with me. And I still look at things that way these days to say, like, what am I doing that I could be paying somebody an hourly rate to be doing, that I could be using my time more effectively to help each of my team members to raise their own bar and to continue getting better.
No, I love that. And then, I think that leaves a good segue into another strength of yours, coming off of leadership and going into coaching, which I think is still part of great leadership, coaching and process development. So your guidance, helped you achieve a team that's had a remarkable 91% bundle rate and so many other metrics that are just dialed in. How has coaching and process development really been instrumental in your agency, like breaking it down in a way where we're getting tactical, right? So if you could provide a blueprint for people on the call, how they can replicate what you did to have a dynamic coaching and process development strategy in their agency, what would that look like?
So we can start that one out again with, these are things that I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
I used to give myself the crutch of saying I'm not good at putting together processes. I'm not the most organized guy. And when you say things like that, you're making excuses for yourself. And I had to change that language. And I'm maybe getting a little bit corny here with this, but I had to start saying I'm working on getting better at building processes instead of saying to myself I'm not good at building processes. And one thing that made a huge difference for us was diving into EOS, and I think you're familiar with EOS as well. And for 6 years now, we've run a scaled down version of the EOS processes that are taught in all of those books. But one of the most important things that we do, without going through all the different moving parts of EOS, is my office manager and I have a weekly meeting where in EOS, they call that a level 10. We call it a pulse meeting, where we're taking the pulse of the agency every week. We look at all the different most important things that we track. So we're looking at daily quote volume, production, obviously, but we've got all the lead indicators, all the lag indicators that we're tracking. And if something is not green, so we've got a goal there, and if that number's not where it should be, then it goes on the issues list. And once we get through all of the issues that are going on within the agency, then we choose 2 things to solve. And we use a very standard process that my EOS coach taught us for problem solving. And we could probably do a whole hour on it. He calls it his smack tool. So you take a problem and you smack it. Of course, smack's an anagram. And it's just been a really useful tool for us to solve problems. And then, Dave, you don't even know this, but over on my whiteboard over here, I had one of my team members draw this out, because I'm a terrible artist. But you posted this on your Facebook page probably 6-8 months ago. You had visited First Form.
Oh yeah.
There's a circle of steps of seeing the problem, coming up with a solution, systematizing it, automating it, and moving on to the next thing. And that was on the wall in Andy's office, I think. Yeah. And not this Andy, but Frizella. And I took a picture of that from your Facebook post of it, and I drew it over here to remind me that when we're solving a problem, we can't just solve it as a one-time thing.
Yep.
If it's a problem we're having now, we're going to have it again. So let's create a system. Let's automate it.
Love that.
So we started building out what some folks might call process manual. We use Google Drive and we use Loom. So my Loom account has 170 some videos. So we've made videos to show literally everything that someone needs to do in my agency, everything from starting a quote to running consumer reports to building in the coverage, talking about how to discuss those coverage options. If somebody comes to me with a question, and this I stole from Cole Carn, who you all have had as a guest, somebody comes to me with a question, my answer to that is there a video on it? And if the answer is yes, go watch. And if the answer is no, then I'm going to go make one now. And then that video is going to be there for next time somebody has that question. So that's, I may have gotten off topic from the original question there, but that's where it led to.
I think that ties in great, right? It's just the reality of, what you're doing in your agency to kind of implement those processes, and then the importance of them, right? Because I think otherwise you're just solving the same problem over and over and over and over again, and you're being more of a firefighter than, really being the person at the helm, growing your business.
That's exactly what I did for far too many years. I stayed in that firefighter role nonstop. That's a lot of stress.
Oh, it is, and it gets exhausting.
So much.
There's only so many times you can put out the same fire again, and that's where I like to do that. Add on to that real quick too, like this rule of 3 when it comes to problem solving. Because one of the things that I noticed that was perpetuating problems, perpetuating fires to be more of a firefighter than a leader, was like you had the same. If you got to be careful of not solving too many problems for your team, right? So you got to remember your team, very smart people. They're very capable people. That's why I think we all have our team members that are there. But sometimes if we are complicit in solving the problems for them, what do? Is they get just used to that path of least resistance, and then they stop using their own innate ability that they have to solve those problems. So we noticed that at one point in time in our agency, we came up with our rule of 3. So anytime somebody has a problem, they can bring them to us. We have an open door policy, but they have to give us 3 solutions they came up to the problem, and then present what the best solution was and why, and do that every time. And what it does, if they know that it's the only way they can deliver the problem, well, it creates a cadence of critical thinking. And then before they know it, they solve their very own problem. And then instead of coming and bringing the problem to you, they're actually just coming and bringing the celebration to you that, hey, we had this problem. This is what I did. This is how I solved it. And, I think that's how like a great organization runs, is when you got those, really competent people that are going out there blocking and tackling with you.
And problem solving is such an important trait for someone to have, no matter what role we're going to put them in the agency, like to the point that I use some different, we'll call them personality profile type things, just to gauge that with anybody. Somebody can have a fantastic personality that could do amazing at sales, but if they're not a natural problem solver, they're going to get so caught up in the weeds that they're going to hold themselves back. And it's funny what you mentioned there, as far as teaching them to problem solve. A lot of stuff that we do in our businesses is very similar to what we have to do as parents with our kids. Yep. So just this morning, my 10-year-old had this problem. We got to school and he had forgotten his Chromebook. And I try to treat, just like you talked about how you handle the situations in your business, my gut reaction to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. But I flipped that and said, okay, you forgot your Chromebook. What do you think the best solution is? And what's good in those situations is just as good in business and vice versa.
I love that, because you're helping them exercise and build the muscle of problem solving. And it's not just going to serve them in their role, but it's going to serve them in life, right?
Absolutely.
Because eventually that muscle gets bigger and you become a bigger problem solver, and the problems that used to stress you out no longer stress you out. They kind of roll off your back, and you're solving bigger and better problems. And
hey, I said earlier, I like to learn from people smarter than me. And it's funny, since we built all these systems and things in Google Drive and Loom, I've accidentally had the mindset that we have all the answers in there. And I haven't done as good a job recently with exactly what you were just talking about. So I've got to re-engage in that when I have folks coming to me with issues, instead of falling back on old habits and just solving them for them.
I gotta. Do you mind, Dave, if I just jump in real quick? There's a question burning in my head for both you guys, and this is something that I don't think we've ever talked about on Ask the Experts, but I hear it probably 3 times a week from a different agency owner, and it has to do with team structuring. Because when you look at being the leader, being in that coaching role, I see different structures out there. I see individuals who basically always have direct contact to every employee. And it's like, hey, if you're the sales professional, I'm the owner, like I'm going to deal with you directly. I see others hire somebody who acts as like a operations director or office manager, and they have a lot more authority. They almost act as like a face for the owner, and they're having all those individual conversations. And it almost creates like an authority figure in the leader, because if the leader gets involved beyond that manager, something is a little bit more elevated. And then you see like team leader structures where maybe they don't have like a dedicated operations director, but it's like, hey, you're the senior salesperson. You want to learn leadership. Like, we're going to empower you to do some coaching on the ground level, but like I'm still the end all be all decision maker. And I'm just curious for both you guys, like what you think is best. Cause I guarantee there's multiple agencies here who are like, man, in order to scale, in order to be that leader, in order to be that coach, I need to start to empower team members. But what do you guys believe is the best structure? Maybe there's not one size fits all, but do you think it's better to have like one key leader representing you? Do you think it's better to do more of a direct team leadership type role? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because again, that comes up every day.
So Dave's going to answer this better than I am, so I'll go first, so then he can mop up anything that I missed. But first of all, I think that's going to depend on your size and scale. My agency with a total of 7 employees is going to look very different in that realm than what somebody who has 20, 25, 30 employees is going to look like. That said, for me, I try to still emulate what we would need when we're at that point as part of the building process. So, at the size that I am right now, do I need to have a dedicated sales manager, a dedicated service man? No. But does it benefit us to have people that are ready and able to fill those roles and even act in those roles so that we can grow into that size and scale? Well, I think that it does, and I think there's value in having having folks in those leadership positions. Gives them more ownership in the results, but then in the processes that go into the results, and it gives them something to be proud of when they've helped develop other team members, and much the same way we talked about earlier. And that through all of that, like, it's all positive that comes from that. They're going to have more buy-in to to agency goals and agency needs and things like that. But Dave, you've got a little more experience on the larger side of this scale, so
I love that. Great answer. No, I can get into a real tactical kind of how our framework typically works, both in our insurance agencies we built, like even in team hired. But one thing just like building a good house, right? What do we got to have? You could build the nicest house in the world, and if you don't have a good foundation, like, that house is eventually going to tip over and you're going to lose all that hard work. And I think the foundation is first and foremost. Like, what does your culture look like? What's the vision of your culture? Because if that's not steady, then your leaders that you try to implement, your team that you try to grow, that's going to be unsteady. So I think it's having a steady foundation first and foremost. What does that look like? Hey, what are your core values and non-negotiables? Absolutely. Are you hiring to that with every single team member, so that you have team members that are truly in alignment to their assignment, right? You got everybody that's like, they're hired based off of those values. And then when you promote to a leader, you're promoting off of those values. So what happens is you have the right foundation there that attracts the right talent. And then you got the right leaders growing in and under the right pretenses, because now they're going in there to be the protectors of that culture. And some people might ask, what does that look like? Well, live with integrity with everything that you do. Winners always find a way. Positive mental attitude. No negativity allowed. So all the things, like, when you think about, like, if you could literally hang the 10 commandments in your office, like, that would make sure if these 10 things happened every single time, every single day, I would have a very smooth running ship. That's in place first and foremost. And then what we like to do as we scale, it's like finding the people that are living and embodying that, doing above and beyond when it's not expected or asked. Like, those are some of the symbols of real leadership, people that are trying to grow, people that are already leading by example. So we'll set expectations that are everybody. That is the path of leadership. And not everybody chooses that path, but the ones that do, they have the will. So I think you got to have somebody that's got the will. So I like to really promote from within. You can find some good leaders you bring in from time to time, but I like to promote from within, because you get a good snapshot of seeing how does that person operate, outside of the role, living the expectations as it is, because that's going to be a good indicator of how they're going to be as a leader. And then what we did is, it started out with just me. I had somebody on the left of me, somebody on the right, but I realized one of the best ways to lead was through osmosis, and just stepping it up and just showing up as my best authentic self every day, leaving everything on the field, not leaving a single thing on the table. And eventually that atmosphere creates, through the osmosis, they start to do as you do. And nobody's ever going to be you, so don't expect that. I just expect, can somebody get to 60 to 70% of me? Because if they can do that, that's a home run. And, we found that out by accident at first. It was just a dynamic of our makeup and our agency. And then we started to realize success leaves clues. And as we started to scale, we'd say, okay, those people that learn from me how to operate that way, well, I'm going to tap you on the shoulder. If you want to own your own agency, well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do the same. And what that means, though, is going into leadership doesn't discard your obligation of your day-to-day duties today. What I need is more out of you. And one of the best ways I need you to lead is the same way I led you, and just show up every day like a monster and just deliver results, because seeing is believing, and that's one of the best ways to lead. You can tell and ask and beg all day long people to do things, but when you have a one-face united leadership team that are all doing it, like that creates an ecosystem and a pressure chamber around everybody else to live into that culture. So now, like each one of those team leads that are the right team leads that are living the right culture and values, they maybe have 3 people underneath each one of them. And then those team leads now have an ultimate enforcer, like a sales director, operations manager that's leading them. So what that really does is it's kind of like a turn of the guard, I feel. Because what happens in so many different businesses, I feel like, hey, the leader, when they're there, everything's running good. But then you hear that age-old saying, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Well, that's because you don't have good leadership infrastructure and a good change of guards when you leave your business or your agency. But when I leave, we have, a series of team leads. We have overall managers that all understand the assignment, that all understand the vision, that all understand the culture, and they're protecting that. And the leadership looks very similar, whether we're there or not there. And that's always been a real successful framework for us. Absolutely. And then obviously accountability, like we went back to before. Once you got that team in place, what are the right motivators and drivers? Get those vision boards out and help getting them to their goal day to day. And, we break up the day like a football game. So we'll break it down like every 2 hours of an 8-hour day. What are the KPIs we're trying to accomplish today? Divide by 4. And that's the metric we have to get every 2 hours, because we find that people have difficulty leading themselves sometimes. They can go off to, a comfort zone of their own that they want to live in for the day because maybe they were up watching the election till 4 a.m, or they're playing video games till 2 a.m, or they're doing something else where they weren't feeling it. So they're just not feeling it for the day. But by having the right ecosystem, when the New York Yankees step on the field, they don't have any option but to feel it, because that team shows up in a wave of excellence every day. It's going to be very noticeable, and there's nowhere for the hide. Like the outfielder can't take a nap because everybody's going to notice in the stadium. All the other players are going to kick their ass. And it's the same there. You need to make a winning team like the Yankees, where all the other players are going to kick their ass if they decide to go hang out, show up for the team for the day. And I like to break it down that way too, because a lot of people can get intimidated by it. Well, where do I even start? Well, it's like, just break that down step by step, piece by piece. It's not going to happen overnight, but eventually you can build that same magnetic energy inside of your business. And before you know it, like you're at the helm and you're no longer in the weeds.
And if you add in there a process to intentionally recognize, what you mentioned there, when somebody steps up without you asking them to do it, and make it a point to recognize that stuff, and I would even say have an official process for doing it. I grabbed these challenge coins. So when somebody does something in our agency that goes above and beyond in one of the 5 core values, then we recognize that. We award a challenge coin in one of our team meetings, and then they each have. I don't have one within arm's reach here, but everyone has a display board for their challenge coins on their desk, and then they have different. Everybody in a small business like this can't be a manager, so there's not a lot of promotion opportunity. But we have built into our structure what we call path to mastery, and as they earn so many challenge coins and different things, they can work their way up that. So that there's still something to shoot for that's not necessarily a promotion that means, a salary change or anything like that. It's just, it's pride of being a strong team member.
No, I love that. And I think a lot of people too, they don't realize that the most common survey question when it comes to what makes them happy in employee, it's not money, right? It's recognition, it's notoriety, it's feeling heard, feeling like they exist, giving them a path for growth, like all those different things. It's not always about the money. And if you find your team members being all about the money, there might be a hole in the boat somewhere when it comes to the culture and all the other important things. Because I find that people will tend to start to focus on the money when the other most important aspects are missing. And in the absence of those things, people get money centric And, that's usually a good indicator that, you're going to probably lose that team member. And I think that's why it's very, very important to have this there. So when you do find, because we all know, recruiting can be incredibly difficult. Training can be incredibly difficult. And you finally get that key player in there, and you want to have them to make sure you have the right ecosystem that's going to keep them in there.
Yeah. And I was talking to an agency owner in Tennessee a couple of weeks back, and he's like, man, I can't get people to not only take the job, but retain the job just over money. My extra $5,000 a year isn't doing it anymore. He said, so I had to get really creative. And he said, what I'm doing is I'm structuring my team like agencies are structured. You're either performing at an emerging, a pro, or an elite status as a producer in my agency. And I've got key metrics that qualify you to be at each level. So depending on your quote volume, policies written, your participation in training, he's got achievements to qualify for that tier. He said, and now when somebody hits like an elite status as a producer, I allow them to work a 35-hour work week. And as long as they hold that status, they can keep working 35-hour work weeks, or they can trade it out for a trip that I'll pay for their family, like for a cruise. And it really struck me as like just a great thing to see is using creativity within the compensation model. And I'm curious for you, Jeremy, like you've been doing this a while now. I'm sure you've tried a lot of different comp models. Do you have any like super user tips on ways that you've maybe gotten away from the money and structured incentives, contests, compensation to really motivate people the right way versus just money?
So I know that guy you're talking about in Tennessee, by the way. He's a good dude. Okay. I've tried to steal a few of those things from him, and I'm admittedly not as creative based on what I said earlier. I got to change that. I'm working on being more creative in that area. But yeah, that's an area where I do take a lot of ideas that I hear from other folks. And I encourage my team to tell me, what it is that would motivate them. And you find they don't always want to give you that feedback. And I think that you have to really continue to push that, and they have to understand that you really want that feedback before they're comfortable telling you what it is that would motivate them. But we do an occasional 1 or 2 day promo where we'll put some extra money on the table for a 1-call close. Every month we have a different bonus opportunity for something that the agency needs. And I put a couple $1,000s around that every month. And that way when I need, I need us to develop more referral business to lower my overall cost of acquisition, rather than just begging everybody to be better at asking for referrals. All right, well, let's put some money on it and have some fun with it, and maybe even have a little internal competition and set up teams, let them compete against each other, and everybody wins. But just doing something and keeping it fun and keeping that part of it light and fun for everybody, I think keeps it engaging. Mark Mercer does a fantastic job with this stuff. His Plinko board. I've struggled with doing some things like that because part of my team's remote and part of them are in the office. So obviously somebody that works from home 3 hours away can't come drop a Plinko chip, but there's still some ways you can have fun with that.
No, love it. And what I'd like to ask next is I'm all about thinking about, hey, what are some of the places that get people, stuck in a setback, right? Or they're cemented in a setback inside of their agency. And sometimes, one of the strengths that you have, just like me, you came from a sales environment, 20 years of sales experience. So that was second nature to you. And that's literally one of the most important things in the agency. The lifeblood is sales, especially in the world today. Mm-hmm. The number one language is sales. If you're not selling, you're dying. But I think where people get stuck, my observation is if they don't come from that background of sales, it's uncomfortable. And they get in there and it's uncomfortable to lead sales. It's uncomfortable to do sales. What advice do you have somebody that maybe they're in their agency today or they came into their agency? Sales isn't their strong suit, but it's the number one thing in their business, the lifeline, the lifeblood that they have to lead. What advice do you have for that person that's maybe living in that lane now of how they can course correct that current reality for themselves?
First thing, there's get comfortable getting uncomfortable. if it's uncomfortable for you to talk about something that's important, well, you better figure out how to get comfortable with it, because it's not going to change if you avoid it. Avoidance is not a solution to any problem I've ever come across. You don't have to be a great salesperson to be a great leader, though.
Yep.
And what you have to have is a great process that is teachable and repeatable. And there's different ideas on what that process looks like. And there's a few different resources out there that are all fantastic. I personally advocate pretty strongly for the CWC process that's been on their website since 2018. We've used that since then, actually before then, when Craig was part of a different operation. But you don't have to be somebody who's amazing at that to teach it and hold someone accountable to it. And if you're uncomfortable in leading sales, well, then, just like anything else, you just got to get out there and do it. Yeah. And, if it's not natural at first, the only way to get to that point is to do it. I mean, years ago when we started role playing every morning, I did it because I wasn't comfortable role playing.
Yep.
Said, if I'm not comfortable, nobody else is going to be. So we just said, we're going to do it every morning. And, the first month or so, that was awkward as could be. There was times where we just all sat there and stared at each other because nobody wanted to start. And the key to making it work was not to say, okay, well, that's not working, so we got to walk away from it. We had to just keep doing that. And, we're to the point now that by somebody's second or third day in here, they know they're going to be role playing every morning. And that seemed like a huge problem to solve all those years ago. Now I can go back and laugh at that. And, anything's that way. Public speaking's that way. If you're uncomfortable doing it, well, you're not going to get comfortable doing it by reading a book about it or watching somebody else do. You just got to go do it.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
The thought of doing this today with you all made me a little uncomfortable, a little nervous. And I said, you know what?
You're doing great, crushing it, man.
If I ever want to do something like that again, the only way I'm going to get better at is to do it. So I appreciate y'all having me on just so I got this experience. But that's the same with anything else. And I hope that answers the question you were asking there.
No,
but
I think 100%.
90% of success is just showing up. Show up.
And that's I used to have written on my wall. This is a very simple thing. I wrote the word something, and then I had the greater than sign, nothing. Doing something is always going to be better than doing nothing. And if you try something and it doesn't work, keep trying it. Don't give up on it immediately. Keep trying it. And then, if using that, whatever that tool is for a long period of time doesn't work, okay, then move on to something else. But just keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Or some days you might be crawling, but then before you know it, the crawl turns into a walk, turns into a stride, turns into a run. And, it's just, I think action is the main thing, right? That's where the learning is. Everybody thinks learning is pick up a book, watching a YouTube video, and then I got to wait for the perfect time that I have all the knowledge. But the knowledge actually comes through doing. It comes from action, implementation of the things you're learning, because what's going to happen is by the time you get to that 10th or 20th or 100th YouTube video or book, you forgot about the other 99 because you get into action where you exercise the muscle. So it's already forgotten.
Habit's a powerful force.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And then what I'd like to get into too is, because I think this is something, when I see most agencies, you see them, the telemarketing thing, the internet lead thing, they all got their different marketing, direct mail, but it seems to be a lot fewer in between that go the route that you go, that I look as like the harder path, but the more fruitful path when it comes to influence, COIs, those referral relationships, because it does take time to nurture. And I think we live in a world of instant gratification. I want results now, and I can flip on a feed source. And there's that, like almost that optics that it's an easy path to just flip on instant results. What advice do you have somebody that's maybe in that space? They don't have COIs, referrals, relationships like that going in their business or agency today. an easy way to get going, and then I guess a path going from start to finish where you're at, where it actually becomes a centrifugal force inside the agency where it's really driving a lot of results. Because I think once those relationships are built, as long as you nurture those relationships, they're going to sustain. And it's kind of like it might be harder to get going, I think, with those COIs and referrals, but it's way easier to sell like a referral or recommendation that comes over from somebody through a relationship. Because I mean, those feel like slam dunks a lot of time versus this hustle, just trying to get that stranger on the phone to build a relationship with you to get them to the finish line.
So I accidentally got into the referral game, and it still makes me laugh to think about this, but I'd had my agency open for about 6 months, and my wife's mother's best friend was a mortgage lender.
Yep.
And she called me one day and she said, Jeremy, I've been waiting to make sure that you're going to make it with that insurance agency. And since you have, I'm going to start sending you my clients. Like 6 months in, yeah, I made it. But she did start sending me her clients, and it turned into about 7 to 10 a month.
Yep.
And I figured out very quickly what you just said, that almost all of them bought from me because somebody else had already put their trust in my name. And I still didn't even know what I was doing yet, but I knew those were closing at a really high rate, and I'd already worked through all my friends and family, and I didn't know where else I was going to go to find new customers, and I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend on marketing. So I thought, boy, I like this referral game, and I started calling up other mortgage lenders. And my point here is, just like we said a minute ago, do something. This is not a great strategy that I used back then, but it still worked. Yep. And I'd call these other mortgage lenders and I'd invite them to go to lunch with me. And no kidding, the very first time I did this, I had no game plan. I sat down with this girl named Jamie Yocklick, which was with BB&T. And we ordered our lunch. And while we were waiting on it to come, we got to know each other a little bit, and it got quiet for a second. And I said, Jamie, who do you send your home buyers to for insurance? And I kid you not, she looks at me. She says, nobody. Would you like me to send them to you? I'd love that. And the point there is that here she was. She'd been doing that for 3 years, and nobody had ever asked her that before.
Wow. Yep. And sometimes it's the right question, right? And it's like, I like that. Who do you send your home buyers to for insurance? Oh, nobody. And like, it's just all about great questions sometimes. That's why I like another favorite question of mine I got from John Maxwell. Who do you know that I should know? Here's my goal. Here's my intention. Now, who do you know that I should know? And then all of a sudden, through a relationship, you could get a phenomenal introduction. And that's something I think you could even take those referral sources. And I think you do that, but like other agents can do that too. You got a solid referral relationship. Birds of a feather flock together, right? So like those type of people hang out with other like-minded people. So if you're having a great referral relationship, hey, I'm trying to get more awesome humans like you to build relationships with. Who do you know that I should know? Like, and then all of a sudden they'll probably get out the Rolodex and introduce you to 3, 4, 5 people, and you could take 10 referral partnerships and all of a sudden magnify those into 50, and then your business is just flowing.
And back at that time, I had no sales pitch whatsoever. I hadn't even thought about how I could provide value to them. So my whole sales pitch was just that, I'll call them immediately and I'll do my best to take care of them. And that was enough for a lot of those folks. So over time, I got a little more strategic with it and learned to ask some better questions than that, and to make sure that I'm doing something to provide value to them. So I've done some different things for some of those folks over the years. Like, recently I put together an event with it's a girl that's been a realtor in town for a while, but she stepped into a mortgage lender role. I let her put together an event and invite all the realtors that she wants to work with, but she's not working with yet. And I brought in my EOS coach, and he taught them how to use that problem solving tool I talked about earlier. We just took an hour and they threw out some different problems they experienced, and he walked them through that process and taught that. We did it at an axe throwing place. So with everybody learned for a little bit, we had some pizza and we threw some axes, and she's been appreciative as can be for that, because it cost me like $200 for the pizza and like $100 for the axe throwing. So for $300, and just a little bit of my time, that gave her a ton of value by being in that room with those other realtors that she needs to build her pipeline to sell mortgages. So, just do something that puts them in a better position and gives them value, and that's going to come back to you tenfold.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. I mean, you can't do big things, you can't do great things in life alone. And it's like when you build those networks and those powerful partnerships, it can really go a long way, but it's got to be a two-way street. So like you said, you're giving them value, right? You're giving them, and what you're doing is bringing them in the room of other like-minded people, other winners that maybe they don't know how to get into some of those rooms, and you're curating that experience to them. So the intrinsic value from that, the one thing that I've always found that people always remember, they sometimes won't remember what you say. They won't remember who you are. Some people don't even remember your name, but what they will
how you made them feel
is how you made them feel. Like 100%.
Right.
If you focus that, making people feel the right way more times than not, then they'll probably remember your name. They'll remember the relationship. They'll remember everything else about it. And then that's how I think, true winning relationships are formed with one another. Is like, it can't be a one-way street. It can be a two-way.
Yeah, and based on that, like the unintended consequence was there was three of those realtors that were there for that meeting that also made it. They reached out to me and told me they wanted to start sending their clients to us, and realtors don't typically make as good of a referral base as a mortgage lender does, but you have 5 or 6 of those folks that are sending you one a month, one every other month.
That's up for sure.
That's gold. So I hadn't even thought about that angle when we put together the event, but just by I didn't get up and talk about insurance. Like, I was the one that organized the whole thing, but I made Shannon the mortgage lender the superstar of the day, and just focused everything around her. I just kind of sat off to the side, and it still came back to me in that realm. So that was a good lesson, or whatever you want to call it, for me, that when you do the right thing and help somebody else out, that there's never anything bad that comes from that.
No, I love it. And it, one of the questions I wanted to ask you too, being a Ray Lynch Award winner, meaning that, really give back, community is a big part of what you do in your agency. And I think a lot of people get philanthropy mixed up. They got to think, well, I got to get to a place where I got the time or I got the money where I can do those things. And they get it backwards. Like, well, I'm going to keep building my business so one day I can do that. And then they look back 5 years, 10 years later, the impact's still not there, and they still got the same excuses. Well, I got to wait till I got the time. I got to wait till I got the money, because what do we get? We get bigger bills. We get like more of our time dedicated. We find ourselves still in that same place. But I'm a big believer, I think, just like you, that impact can be like a driver into your brand, and you can have your cake and eat it too. And I'd be curious how that works for you and your agency, and how other people, you would advise them how they can take impact, make that part of their brand that helps the whole ecosystem go around. It drives sales, it drives camaraderie in the agency, it helps build culture while doing, great work out in the community.
So I think the biggest hurdle for most folks is what you talked about, and then figuring out what they're passionate about. And for me, the way that I figured that out was trial and error. I knew I wanted to do something in the community, but I questioned, at what level I'd be able to truly do anything that mattered. And I got involved in Rotary, ended up in a Rotary club that really only wanted to just send checks when people asked for donations. Like we tried to put together different community events and nobody was interested. They decided to make me president of that Rotary Club a couple of years ago, and I tried to change that dynamic, but I didn't do a very good job with it. And I got frustrated from trying to do things like that through that organization. And it turned out that the way that, the big event that we do that turned into the nomination for Ray Lynch was our angel tree that we've done at Christmas time each year. This will be the 6th year. And through Rotary, ironically, I met the director of a local domestic violence shelter. And that morning I had been on Facebook and I posted asking if anybody knew where there was an angel tree that had a kid that we could sponsor. I wanted to start teaching my kids how to think about other people at Christmas time instead of being the normal kid that just, I want that, I want that, I want that. So the same day that I had posted that, somebody sent me a message and said, "Hey, you're a smart guy, Radabaugh. Why don't you start your own?" And I laughed and I said I wouldn't know where to start. And about 2 hours later, here I am at this Rotary Club meeting, and this lady's our speaker. And it was right around Thanksgiving time. And I walked up to her after the meeting and I said, I already know how you're going to look at me when I say this, but I'm pretty sure I was supposed to meet you today. She gives me that look. And I asked her, you guys do anything for the kids for Christmas? And no kidding, she just started crying right there on the spot. And she said, "We had a meeting this morning. We don't have the budget. We can't do anything this year." And I knew immediately, without even really thinking about it, I knew that this was the moment. So I said, "Do you have like wish lists for them?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can you send them to me?" And she says, "Well, how many do you want?" I said, "All of them." And then I went, "Oh God, what did I just say?" And she said, "Do you want to know how many there are?" And I'm like, "Yes, but I still want all of them because I already said it." So, and she says, "Well, there's 17. I'm like, "Okay, no problem. We'll figure it out." And 17 turned into 53 by the time we got to Christmas. And
wow,
I'm not a huge social media guy, but I started posting things on social media asking if anybody wanted to help sponsor these kids. Yep. And we had so many people in the community that wanted to be part of it. I actually had more people that wanted to sponsor than I had kids that needed sponsored. Second year was COVID. COVID year, we ended up with 75 kids that year. But the point of all of this is that if you have it as a goal that you want to do something like that, you've got to just start taking the opportunity to do something where you can, and you'll find your passion that way. I didn't know what my passion was. Like, I didn't set out to go, I want to go find something to help kids that are in need. But the minute that was in front of me, like I said, I knew that was the moment. And I really didn't know where all of it was going to go. But here we are in the 6th year, and we're working with that shelter. We're working with another one that takes care of kids that are in foster care in a couple different counties. And I've got somebody else involved this year that wants to add in another entity that's got 200 families that they work with. I'm admittedly a little terrified at taking on 200 more families, but I also, I've seen from what we've done over the last 5 years that nothing's impossible. And the crazy level of support that you get when you start doing things like this it almost makes it an obligation to do it. Not all, take the word almost out. When you see the number of people that want to help, but they don't know where to help, and you can be the conduit to make that happen. I mean, we have customers, a lot of those mortgage lenders that refer business to us sponsor kids every year. And if from a business perspective, you think they're going to start sending their referrals to the State Farm guy down the road?
Oh yeah,
they're engaged in our angel tree every year. No chance. That built more loyalty than anything else we could have done. And then outside of that, I've got agent friends all over the country that have either sent money or sent gifts for kids every year we've done this. There's at least 15, if not 20 different agents that some of them I only know because of Facebook. I've never met them face to face, but they see what's going on and They reach out and want to help. And that's the most amazing part of all of it, is just once you're doing it and you see how many people want to help, like it makes it it's a ton of work to do every year, but it makes it so easy to do that work. And then it's more rewarding than anything else we do in the agency. I love celebrating the wins of growing the business and all of those things. But when you can show up with a U-Haul trailer full of gifts for 75 kids, and you see the look on the volunteers' face, we don't get to see the kids; they have to be kept confidential. But you see that look on the volunteers' faces, and then they send you copies of letters that the kids wrote them afterwards. Like, you're gonna see me get emotional now thinking about it. But
I'm the same way, and I believe givers gain, and I love that about you. And we're actually going to be coming up. We're participating in Dane Fleischman's again this year, world's largest toy drive, and he's got a Tampa location. And
remember that from last year.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that again this year.
Awesome.
I've always find too, it's like there's you kind of a lot of, when you're in the place of giving, like all your problems seem to go away, and it seems like the unexpected seems to happen. You start to live in this supernatural, miracle mentality space where all of a sudden, like, the deals start to become effortlessly in a way. And I think that's just how God works. I think that's how the universe works. The more people that give, the more givers gain, and just love that. So hats off to you with that.
And the best part of all of it, if I'll end with that, is that, I started this wanting to teach my kids something. I really was just thinking that I was going to take them out to shop for another kid.
Yeah.
I got 5 years in a row now that my kids have been out here helping load the truck up, riding with me down to the shelter, carrying in, these great big Santa bags full of stuff for other kids. And, that experience is going to stick with them. And the compounding effect there is that I can see when they're adults one of these days, that's going to be something that was a big part of their childhood, and they're going to go do bigger, better things than I ever thought about doing, because it's already part of their DNA.
Absolutely. Absolutely love that. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show here. And I just want to say, just thank you so much. You shared such wealth of knowledge with everybody here today, and spending your time with us. Everybody, make sure, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the rerun, drop some love, drop some emojis, some fire for Jeremy on here, because he really brought it today. And I also want to give you the opportunity to talk about how people can work with you, what working with you looks like, and then how people can follow you that are watching on the show today.
So I've come on with CWC as a coach with CWC. So through their site, I have my page on there. There's a booking link. You can schedule a call with me. If you're looking at next year, you want to grow and trying to figure out how to navigate a lot of the changes for all state agents, specifically for next year. That's stuff that I've worked through and figured out, and there's some value that comes with years of dealing with those changes every year, and it's always just about what do we need to do to maximize the opportunity, and whether it's an agency owner that's looking for mentorship and guidance in building the processes and systems that are going to help them scale their agency, or somebody that wants someone to engage and do some team coaching. I love doing that as well. I've done it with my team for a long time. I enjoy working with other teams. Book a call with me. Let's talk and see if it's a good fit. And if I can help you, I'd love to do it.
I'm dropping it in the chat, by the way, Jeremy. So anybody looking down in comments, there's a link taking them right to your landing page.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. No, thank you. Thank you for being on the show today. And, in another incredible episode of Ask the Experts. Thank you to all our listeners out there. Again, the ones that are listening live and the ones that are watching the rerun. We appreciate your attention, and our goal is to try to bring you value every single week. So again, give Jeremy some love, and thank you all for tuning in to another episode. And we're looking forward to coming at you same time next week, same place in the Insurance Syndicate Group. And until then, we'll see you then with another expert, and let's sign off. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Jeremy. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.